Hi guys, this is Ginsane Mom and gusto ko lang sanang i-share kung ano yung mga naging favorite kong topics during the entire Terra We Talk series.
Hi everyone, I'm Mama Mary Cor of Proud Inay and I'm here to share some of my favorite topics or webinar from the Bakit Anak series of Terra We last year. Honestly, all topics were well thought of and very helpful and useful to us parents and carers.
Unang-una sa mga naging favorite ko na episode ay yung syempre yung launch.
Good afternoon, everyone! This is Ginsane Mom, and I am a momfluencer, a blogger, and a live streamer. And for today, I will be your host sa very first na episode ng Terra We Talk series na Bakit Anak.
Intindihin natin kung bakit ba siya nagtatantrum. Intindihin natin kung bakit ba siya nagagalit, naiiyak. Intindihin natin.
If you always think about yourself na, ay, ang ingay, nag-aaway na naman ito. Naririndi na ako. Kaya kailangan ko silang patigilin.
So Teacher Kix and Teacher Shane explained well the personality or knowing the personality and building the personality of every child.
Kailangan i-observe rin natin yung reaction natin doon sa cries ng bata. Kasi doon nag-start yung personality ng bata.
Let's keep in mind na ang attachment styles ay paraan para sila ay manatiling malapit or attached sa kanilang caregivers. Kumbaga, this is a way, itong apat na techniques, these four styles, they exhibit different behaviors, but all of them are aiming to be proximal, malapit sa kanilang caregiver.
Next na naging favorite ko is yung Breaking Traditions na episode. This is with Mr. Chuck Araneta.
Or there are also a lot of dads out there na gustong maging hands-on pero hindi lang nila alam paano. Yung dads kasi tama kayo, hindi talaga sila yung vocal eh. Yung fathers are supposed to be raising, training, and instructing. So, kung sinabi kong be like me, mali na kaagad. So what I tell my children is be like Christ.
So next na favorite ko naman ay yung keeping your kids active during pandemic. So ito ay with Miss Shara Soto at saka with two other experts. So nakakatuwa. Ang saya nitong activity na to. Napaka-interactive kasi nag-yoga kami dito. Tapos may dancing exercises.
And include yourself with them. Kung anong gusto nilang gawin, yun siguro yung gawin mo para ma-encourage sila, para makita nila na may kasama sila na tumakbo or tumalon kahit sa garden lang or sa labas lang ng building nyo or ng village nyo or sa labas ng house, makapaglakad lang ba or makapagpapawis. I think that's important na.
And next na favorite ko din, yung succeeding beyond learning difficulties during pandemic.
Bago makapagbasa ang bata, may 6 na skills na dapat ay alam niya. Ito ay phonological awareness, concepts about print, oral language development, comprehension, handwriting, and alphabet knowledge. Bago kayo magturo ng writing, ituro nyo kung paano niya hahawakan ang coloring and writing instrument. Ang tawag po dyan ay proper grip.
Then also, yung kay Mommy Sab and Teacher Nix, promoting your child independence. Super touching naman na itong webinar nito, lalo na nung Mommy Sab share the progress of Pancho.
But I see through the years, through the months, sobrang big difference. Ngayon, he's able to just touch it and feel because we're doing it consistently.
Isa pa ding magandang topic na pinag-usapan namin ay yung healthy sleep for babies with Miss Maria.
When we are sleeping or even when the child is sleeping, the growth hormone is released, no? So that's why they say nakakatangkad yung pagtulog. So if we let them sleep too long in the daytime, yung nawawala yung nighttime sleep. And the nighttime sleep at a certain age, no, is very important then.
Isa sa mga paboritong webinar ko yung Wonders of Toilet Training by Teacher Chairus.
The process of training a child to control bladder and bowel movements and to use the toilet independently.
Sobrang helpful neto kasi lalo na sa amin na may mga toddlers.
So kapag tinatry natin siyang umalis sa comfort zone niya, ayaw niya, mag-escape na lang siya kasi nga naging dependent siya dun sa diaper.
Another topic na nakaka-relate talaga ako is yung how to deal with grief by Mommy Feliz.
Yun, I think it's a really big factor na you are not alone in your journey.
Watching that webinar makes me so emotional.
I got convicted also na the Lord was telling me, you're taking too much control and you're not letting me be your God.
Last but not the least ang favorite ko ay yung feeding tips with Miss Va. Isa sa natutunan ko sa kanya or additional learning from her is when she talked about posture.
So what research tells us is that if either breathing or posture are compromised, eating may be resisted. So a simple conversation with a family member or sister in advance could also help them become more aware of the importance of posture for their kids or their friends who may have feeding difficulties in the future.
My name is, sit down, is Elijah Alistair Porlas. I am 9 years old. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Down. Another one. Another one. Do this. Do this. Do this. Do this. Do this. Easy. Do this. Do this. Do this. No. Do this. Okay. Ready. Set. Go. Okay. Very good. Pagkatatlo lang tayo. Later ulit. Back away. Dance. Oh, dance, dance, dance. Huwag ka mag
Very good ah. Galing ah. Oh, ang galing kuya ko ah. Oh.
Good afternoon, Teacher Lian.
Good afternoon, Ma'am.
Everybody.
Yan, salamat po sa pagpunta niyo po ngayon sa ating link tsaka pagbibigay ng time sa pagsali po sa psychosocial program natin ulit today. Yan, so ako po si Teacher Lian and kasama ko po si Mommy Badet mula po sa Therapy. Yun, and ang program po natin ngayon sa ating psychosocial session today is connecting with our community. Yun, tungkol saan ba siya, Mommy Badet?
Tungkol siya sa finding support na hindi lang siya manggagaling sa family. Pwede din tayo makahanap ng support mula sa ating mga community at matuto mula sa kanila. So, i-introduce lang natin yung mga kasama ko today. Yun nga, si Teacher Lian kasama natin. Meron din tayong mga mommies na later i-introduce din namin. Siyempre, ang ating speaker for today. So, go ahead, Teacher.
Yeah, so ang ating speaker for today po is si Dr. Francesca Jao Fernandez. Yan, so si Dr. Francesca Jao Fernandez is currently a developmental and DGH from October 2019 to March 2020. She had her undergraduate studies of BS Biology at the University of the Philippines, and she graduated Doctor of Medicine from the University of the Philippines College of Medicine. She had her post-residency fellowship training and postgraduate residency at UP-PGH Department of Pediatrics, and she is a diplomate of the Philippine Pediatric Society on 2017. And may mga kasama din po tayong mga mommies na parent advocates sa Therapy. Yan, yung first advocate po natin, si Mommy Ann. Naka-mute po kayo, Mommy Badet.
Sorry, ulitin ko. So, yung parent guest natin na mommy advocate, si Joanne Estoy, mom of Francis, who has been diagnosed with ADHD last year. During the pandemic ito, she took up hotel and restaurant management in Polytechnic University of the Philippines. She worked in business process outsourcing for almost 10 years. Now, she is a full-time mom. Makakasama rin natin yung ang ating parent advocate na si Mami Pinky A. Enrico, is a full-time mom and an online seller. She is a graduate of hotel restaurant management. She has one child with autism. Kasama ko rin siya as parent point person dito sa Therapy. So makakasama natin sila later on.
Next slide, please, para sa picture ni Mommy Pinky. And doon naman po sa next slide ulit natin. Yeah,
So,
nandito po yung mga topics natin this afternoon. So we would have our topics about understanding of our child's condition, about communicating and advocating on disability, and how to explain disability to our family. And for our house rules, Mommy Badet.
yes, bago po tayo magsimula, here are some reminders for everyone as flash on our PowerPoint. Yan. So, pakimute lang po ang ating microphone while the speaker is talking. And then click raise the hand, yung icon dun po sa baba ng ating screen. When you want to talk or share after the panel discussion, you may also type in the chat your comments or sharing while the speakers are talking para mabasa po natin yun later on. And then polls may be ongoing while the speaker is talking. You may participate by answering it.
So, speaker po natin this session, si Doc Francesca. Yun, magsasalita po siya tungkol sa pag-intindi ng kondisyon ng ating anak at paano maging advocate sa ating pamilya at sa ating community. Yan, so Dr. Francesca, your turn na po.
Okay, so good afternoon.
Good afternoon,
I'll
Doc.
just share my slides, ha? Alright. Advocate for your child and provide social support. Okay, so in the core or before we understand child development, we must know how does the brain develop. So a child's brain is actually very active. Some would think na the child's brain or is not as active as an adult's, but actually it is. And the development of the brain actually occurs even before your child is born. So there are different factors that influence the development of the child, and it is the interplay between these factors, such as genes and early childhood experiences, that contribute to the child's development and brain development. So it's actually a very complex process. So hindi lang siya yung iniisip ng ibang tao na isang linya na sinusundan for us to follow through our child's development. It's actually a series of peaks rather than climbing a single big mountain. So parang marami silang mga pinagdadaanan na akyat baba, na peaks, hindi lang yung dire-diretso pataas. So it's influenced, as I mentioned earlier, by different factors. So things like the genetics, genetic component or makeup of the parents, the epigenetics, meaning how these genes are how these genes are affected by different environmental factors, biological experiences, yun nga, the environment, and even socio-economical factors such as maternal education, socioeconomic status, things like that. All of these factors affect the child's development and behavior. And we actually have what we call the sensitive or critical period of development. And here in this period of development, we see rapid growth kasi of the child's brain. So healthcare professionals believe that the things that happen during this sensitive period or sensitive window affect greatly the trajectory of a child's development. So those who receive a very nurturing type of care and environment, those who have a safe environment, those who have access to services and community support are seen to have a higher trajectory as seen in the green line here, no? And then those with inadequate care or with inadequate support, and even those who experience things like what we call adverse childhood experiences, tend to have a lower trajectory of development. And minsan, when they experience things like this adverse child experiences like child abuse, emotional neglect, absentee parents, or parental substance abuse, pwede pa nga tayong makakita ng what we call regression or yung parang pagkawala ng certain skills. So, as you see, no, these adverse child experiences and the type of support that we give the children can have lasting effects not only in their current development, but also on their health, diba? Mga medical conditions, behaviors, even up until adulthood, and even affect yun nga, life potential, like kung ano yung maaabot nila sa pagtanda nila, whether they will graduate, what type of work or career they will have, things like that. And nakikita natin, there are several studies already that support, no, that the greater number of adverse childhood experiences that a kid has, the higher the risk for having negative health and well-being outcomes. So dito pumapasok, no, yung importance ng ating community support, psychosocial support, tsaka yung things that we do even in our own nuclear family, kasi it really affects how the child develops and affects even their potential, no, their and even nga medical conditions. So we have, although there are a lot of possible mga adverse life experiences nga, di ba? Marami rin tayong mga factors or positive factors that help these children cope with and adjust or adapt to these childhood experiences. And one of the most, I think as a Filipino, no, isa to sa mga strengths natin na sinasabi nga nila na resilient tayo, di ba? So that's one of the important factors, yung resilience natin. Not just, yun nga, so hindi lang siya sa Filipinos na-go through, pati sa mga bata, di ba? Their resilience factors are very important, and these have key components, no, yung resilience factors ng mga bata. So the first is social competence. It's their ability to obtain yun nga, positive responses from others. It's how they adapt, they empathize, effectively communicate, and even how to develop a sense of humor. Those things help them cope. And the next will be their problem-solving skills. So these are the skills that allow them to plan and be resourceful, to think critically, think out of the box, think abstractly, to become more reflective and flexible. So children with good problem-solving skills are able to adapt to yun nga, mga adverse childhood experiences. And their sense of autonomy or yung strong sense of self nila and self-identity also helps them overcome these factors. And it allows the child to think and act independently. And last but not the least is their sense of meaning or purpose. So this sense of meaning creates belief in a positive future. And children who have a good grasp of their sense of meaning or purpose are said to have a greater higher chance of having positive outcomes. So dito pumapasok yung importance ng ating pagbibigay sa kanila ng proper supports for them to develop these for them to develop and hone these resilience factors. And one of the greatest siguro or most critical na protective factor is having a stable, loving, and affectionate relationship. So that could be with a parent or even peers or even other relatives or adults. So it's important for our kids, especially children with special needs, to develop a loving and affectionate relationship, parang to create a bond, kumbaga, with the people around them. Okay? Kasi the child, when you look at the child, you don't just see an individual. You see the result of the complex interplay of different factors. So yung bata, it's a reflection of different systems, kumbaga nga. So we have what we call microsystems, meaning yung kunyari yung nuclear family nila, yung parents nila, yung children nila, yung other children in their family, their peers and their the other adults in their school, diba? Their neighborhood, and even in religious settings, kung meron silang mga religious groups, those are the things, or those are the microsystems that affect the child's development and affect the child as a whole, diba? So when you want to address, or when you want to make changes, or to help a child, it is important not just to focus on the child himself, but also to look at the other supports surrounding him, because changing or addressing these microsystems, diba, can inadvertently affect the child, whether positively or negatively. Okay? So paano ba natin tutulungan? So how do we help our children with special needs? Ano ba yung mga pwede nating gawin to help our children with special needs? How do we provide them with the supports that we've been talking about? So there are what we call top 10 essential actions. So this is actually from the book by Nancy Weisman on newly diagnosed children with autism spectrum disorders. But I think it's actually applicable also to other children with special needs. So itong top 10 essential actions niya, hindi lang naman limited sa children with autism, even other children with special needs, even those with ADHD, cerebral palsy, intellectual disability, global developmental delay, pwede rin to. Feeling ko applicable din tong mga essential actions na to. And ano ba tong mga essential actions na ito? So the very first, and I think one of the most important is to first understand and accept the diagnosis of your child. So it is with understanding and accepting the diagnosis that will lead or open doors for you kasi to understand how you can better help them, how you can better address their needs. When you educate yourself about the diagnosis, when you try to learn ano ba yung mga expected na difficulties that they might have, or expected na strengths that they might have, diba? The better you the better able you are to help these children. And then the next is to document everything. So it's very important to be well informed and connected. So siguro alam ng mga mommies dito, no, na ang daming documents na kailangan. Ang daming documents na binibigay sa inyo. May mga progress report ng physical therapist, occupational speech therapist, may mga developmental assessments, di ba? Ang daming mga ganyang reports. And for you to have a better understanding of where your child is at this point in time, maganda na meron kayong proper documentation para meron din kayong tinitingnan na ano ba yung mga kaya niyang gawin before or ano ba yung mga difficulties niya before. And then you better appreciate kung ano na yung kakayahan niya ngayon kasi nakita mo na, oh, tingnan mo, dati ito yung kaya niya, pero ngayon mas madami na siyang kayang gawin. So, or it can also help or guide you to identify mga areas of weaknesses, kung ano pa yung pwede nyo i-target, di ba? And then, number 3, it's important to establish your A-team. So, I know, as we mentioned earlier, di ba, there are a lot of, kumbaga, mga key roles or people surrounding your child that can affect him or her and affect his or her development. So, kailangan ma-identify mo sino ba yung mga key individuals na yon sa team mo for your child. So, usually, this include you as a parent, teachers, your therapists, developmental pediatricians, social worker, yung mga ganun. So, you need to find and identify key players, kumbaga, in your team for your child. And then when you find this team, the next step is to take the driver's seat. So, ikaw, as a parent, you will be the best person to get to know your child. And even though other experts, for example, yung developmental pediatricians, therapists, even though they have a vast knowledge siguro about your child's diagnosis, you will still be the best person or the best individual who knows your child, the child's strengths, and ikaw yung best person to lead your team. Okay? So with that, you need to know your child, his likes, dislikes, strengths, and challenges. Kasi yun nga yung tutulong sa'yo to help you guide your A-team. And then, once you have those teams, put the proper supports in place. Meaning, you get access to different types of support. So you access therapeutic support, medical support. So make sure na alam mo, no, yung kung ano yung mga posible or pwede mo mabigay na tulong sa iyong anak. And then know and exercise your legal rights. So I'll discuss this further later. Pero it's important, no, to know yung mga legal rights, yung mga laws, yung mga kunyari mga ang tawag dito, things like PWD IDs, yung mga supports, benefits yun, the benefits that your child can have. So it's important to know those things. And then yun, so obtain key evaluation and reports, and yun nga, it's part of your documentation eh. And along the way, you will be able to learn which treatments and programs are most appropriate for your child. So hindi lahat, kasi ang daming options, di ba? Marami tayong minsan options for different children, and not all will work best for your child. So along the way, matututunan niyo on which treatments and programs are most appropriate for your child, and then maybe you can kumbaga streamline na the interventions that your child is having. And then last but not the least is yun nga, advocate. So we need to advocate for our children, and I will be discussing in the next few slides how else you can advocate for your child. But siguro, no, before we move on from this, siguro idadagdag ko dito sa top 10 essential actions kasi malapit nang mag-eleksyon. Nasama na natin sa number 11 yung bumoto po tayo ng tama kasi siguro kasama na rin po sa supports na pwedeng ma-access no ng ating mga children with special needs, yung government support and putting the right people in the position of power will help you have access to those. So totoo lang po kasi kung ikukumpara po natin yung access to special needs care sa Pilipinas compared to, let's say, other first world countries like the United States, mga ganyan, medyo nahuhuli po tayo. So siguro po kuhanin na natin yung oportunidad sa susunod na taon na bumoto po ng tama para sana with the proper people in place maisulong na natin itong mga other rights natin, and yun nga yung mga legalities natin for these children with special needs. Okay, but so yun nga, so which brings me to the next slide, which is yun nga, know your rights. So I think if I am not mistaken, you already had a talk or may na-share na dun sa Therawina website na talk with the National Council on Disability Affairs, no? So there are a lot of disability laws. Hindi ko na kaya po silang isa-isahin. So baka na-discuss na rin po ng people from NCDA yon. But it may be beneficial for you to take a look. So ito yung website ng NCDA and you can check po yung mga available na disability laws for children with special needs. And siguro one of the most basic is to make sure that they are already able to get help from or get benefits from the PWD ID card. So ang laking tulong po ng sinasabi ko lagi sa mga pasyente ko po na ang laking tulong po ng 20% discount, no? So malaking bawas po 'yon sa ating mga gastusin. It can help not just your child with special needs but you as a parent as well. And then siguro get to know your local government as well, because some local governments offer specific services and benefits to their constituents. So ask them, are there other benefits and supports that your child is eligible to receive? So maganda po yon. Alamin po ninyo dun sa local government ninyo kung meron po silang mga espesyal na programa. Okay? And then, when you advocate for your child, it's also important to not just get to know their strengths and weaknesses, but also to get to know your own strengths and weaknesses. And it's important to pay attention to your weak areas and then find others na kayang ma-fill yung gap or yung weak areas ninyo so that they can assist you on areas where you need it. So, for example, ano bang concrete example dito? So, for example, you as a parent, you are a very amicable person, people person ka. So, madali for you to approach other people, to ask for help or to educate them. Pero, hirap ka with, let's say, visual arts. So let's find someone else that can help you, like make infographics, di ba? To help you educate other people. So ikaw na doon sa daldal, hanap ka muna ng ibang tao to help you with the visual aid. So mga ganun po. Next, it's very, very important to educate yourself. And it's very nice for parents if you always ask questions regarding your child's welfare. So wag po kayong mahihiyang magtanong sa inyong developmental and behavioral pediatrician, sa inyong therapist, sa teachers ng anak po ninyo. Don't be shy. Always ask. Kasi by asking questions, you are letting other people know that you are very passionate about your child's future and that you care for them very deeply and that you are willing to learn. And that you're very interested in learning how to take care of your child properly, di ba? So, yun po, don't forget to ask. And yun nga, as I mentioned earlier, you are the expert when it comes to your child. So people are there, people like me, your developmental pediatrician, your therapists, we are here to assist you and your child, but no one knows your child better than you. Sino po ba yung kasama ng inyong anak 24 oras, 'di ba? Hindi naman po yung therapist, hindi po yung mga doctors, 'di ba? Hindi yung teachers nila. Kayo po 'yon. So kayo po talaga yung eksperto sa inyong mga anak. And it is your responsibility to educate others about your child. Let them know your child's strengths. Guide them on how to address your child's weaknesses. So tulungan niyo po sila. For example, for teachers, tell them na kung saan yung subjects or saan yung areas na magaling yung anak ninyo para they know when to tap your children. Magaling bang sumayaw sa declamation contest ba to magaling, or magaling bang mag-drawing, ganun, di ba? And then guide them on how to address your child's weaknesses. Sabihin nyo sa kanila, teacher, alam ko po medyo may pagkamakulit lang po itong anak ko, pero pag po binigyan nyo naman yan ng movement break na 5 minutes, after some time magpa-participate na yan. So tulungan nyo lang po sila. Yung ganon, give them specific examples, guide them how to address your child's weaknesses. Okay? And then, build your network, because as we said kanina nga, di ba, remember the microsystems that are surrounding your child, no? It's important to develop connections with those microsystems kasi they in turn affect your child. So get in touch with other parents, like parents from your child's school or yung child's therapists. Develop a connection with your teacher, doctors, therapists, community leaders, local government officials, and even other relatives. Kasi even if you are your child's expert, diba, you will need the help of these people. You will always need the help and the support of all these people. And your child's experiences with these people are very important, and yun nga, ayaw nating maka-experience siya ng mga diniscuss natin kanina, di ba, na adverse child experiences. So gusto natin as much as possible to create a more or less positive environment with these people. And then, ayun, so you need to be seen and make yourself heard. So when you advocate for your child, try to widen your reach. So wag lang po basta sa pamilya natin. So syempre importante, 'di ba, yung nuclear family, but try to widen your reach, 'di ba? Try to educate people outside your nuclear family. Make yourself seen in social media, make yourself heard in parent forums, in webinars like this, 'di ba? Or even in parent-teacher meetings, or in mga mga conferences with your therapist, 'di ba? So yun, it's very important to make yourself heard and make yourself be seen. And of course, last but not the least, huwag niyo pong kakalimutan yung sarili po ninyo. Laging aalagaan po yung inyong sarili, kasi remember that if you want to take the best possible care, you want to take care of your child, you must first take care of yourself. Okay? So, kailangan, di ba, you cannot pour from an empty cup. Kailangan yung sarili din po natin, pinapangalagaan po natin. Kasi sa ating mga magulang, no, sa ating humuhugot ng lakas ng loob yung ating mga anak na may special needs. Okay? So, mga huling paalala po, when you advocate, when you help your child, better to start early. Don't forget to ask help. Wag po kayong mag-alinlangang kumausap sa iba. Sumali ng support groups. At yun nga po, take a break at magpahinga. So, believe in yourself po as parents, because you are your child's best therapist and advocate. Okay, so I think that ends my discussion. Siguro we'll save the questions for later. Tama ba?
Yeah, yes po. Yan, thank you po Doc sa inyong sa inyong talk. Yan, ang dami po namin natutunan and na-highlight po talaga yung importance ng strength po as a parent na kailangan humugot ng lakas from other sources kasi hindi naman kaya na magulang lang mag-isa. Important din po talaga not only the environment of the child but also the environment of the parent. Ayan po.
Ako naman, on my part as a parent po, yung mga tinuro po ninyo, napaka-importante po niyan eh. Kasi nung panahon ko, wala pang mga ganito. So, napakaswerte ng mga parents right now that they are watching mga live streams, mga webinars, and doctors talking about it. Kasi nung panahon ko, 2006, 2007, scarce pa ang parent support group, walang Facebook, wala pa po nito. So, talagang in-equip ko lahat ng kailangan kong equip na which tinuro po ni doktora ngayon. So, sabi ko sa sarili ko, I am in the right path. So, thank you very much, Doktora, for this wonderful insights. Kailangan po ito ng mga magulang natin, especially those na bagong diagnosis.
Oo nga po, no, Mommy Badet, no? So, noong 2006, very few pa lang talaga yung resources. So, I applaud you, I commend you po for having yung parang in-empower niyo yung sarili ninyo. And even without these supports, no, nakayanan po ninyo and you're able to cope with a challenge, no, of having a child with a special needs.
Dati hindi pa uso, so I had to go to internet cafes, magbasa ng libro. Napakahirap yung support group noon. Pupuntahan ko, isa lang yung alam kong support group dati na nag-o-offer. So, pinupuntahan ko pa yon. So, talagang, kailangan i-equip ko eh. I have to understand kasi iba yung acceptance versus understanding. So, I accepted my child with the diagnosis na autism pero very vague yung autism. So, sabi ko, kailangan ko maintindihan what is autism. So, talagang kailangan mag-aral. Even up to now na 18 na siya eh. So, I still have to learn more. Marami pa talagang aralin. So, talagang importante po na may 18 talaga. Favorite ko rin yan at yan eh. Na-develop po namin yan nung therapist namin na sabi niya, ganito yung gawin mo. And yung sinabi niyo rin, Doc, na ask questions. Lagi akong nagtatanong and then lagi akong seen and heard ng school ng mga bata, ng mga anak ko. Seen and heard sa special needs school nila, sa therapist, sa community. So, that's what we are doing right now. So, sabi ko talaga, tama yung turo sa akin. I'm in the right path.
Yes. Yes. On my side naman po, ako po, hindi pa ako parent, yun. Pero isa po akong speech therapist. And may mga ibang parents din po kasi akong nakakausap and other young professionals like me na gusto maging advocate din for children with special needs. And talagang, na-appreciate ko po, Doc, kanina yung na-emphasize nyo yung kailangan nating bumoto ng tama. Kasi kasi kung nagawa na lahat ng magulang, nagawa na din po lahat ng mga organizations na makatulong po sa mga bata. Maybe it's something wider than their immediate environment na kailangan nating tugunan and kailangan ipaglaban. Kaya important na bumoto ng tama para yung sistema maayos and magkaroon ng access, lalo na dun din sa mga parents na wala pong access online. So at least, makakarating sa kanila kapag, bumoto tayo ng tama at naayos po yung sistema eventually. Opo.
Yes. Kaya yung isa pa, yung advocate. Kasi ako as a parent, I advocate for my children. Not just my children, damay-damay na lahat ng children ng my children kasi I have an organization. So, nag-ripple effect po kami sa parents nila, sa families nila, and then sa community namin dito sa Antipolo. Since I'm here in Antipolo, so nag-advocate kami sa community namin para at least yung acceptance for the children, may understanding na kasama. So, yun
I really like what you mentioned, the ripple effect. That's really, that's very important. So, you always have to keep in mind na when, for example, you educate someone, it doesn't stop with that person. Meron po you are building a web 'di ba?
Opo.
And I like also what you mentioned, Mami Badet, kanina, no, na yung learning, it never stops po, whether your child is 18 years old or younger or older, di ba? It never stops because
Iba-iba yung
there
phases.
is parang ang dami pong pwede nyo pang matutunan along the way. So, yun nga, important po talaga to educate ourselves, continue to educate ourselves. Kahit kami pong mga doktor, no, patuloy po namin in-educate yung sarili namin kasi ang dami pong mga bagong mga knowledge, kumbaga, na lumalabas through different researches. So, again, yun nga, ripple, trickle-down effect yan. So, kung may mga natututunan tayo, mas ibig sabihin, mas marami tayong mapapasa sa ibang tao na bagong knowledge tungkol sa ating mga children with special needs.
Opo, totoo po.
Sige. Kumustahin din po natin sina Mami Ann and Mami Pinky. Ayun po, meron din po silang mga isi-share tungkol din po sa mga social support systems nila, sa communities nila. Ayan, kumusta po ba yung kumusta po yung inyong main sources of social support, Mami Ann?
Hello po, good afternoon po sa lahat, sa buong Terawi family, kay Dr. Francesca and sa mga therapists natin and mga co-parents. Meron po akong niready dito na guide ko po to share our journey, yung journey po namin ni Francis, yung son ko po na diagnosed with ADHD last year during the pandemic. And as I go along, I can answer yung what are your main sources of support and how they have helped you. So, for me po, yung support po, sila talaga yung nagbigay ng malaking tulong para mas maintindihan ko yung condition ni Francis, yung gagawin po namin action, yun po, yung acceptance na, gaya po na sabi ni Ma'am Badet, yung acceptance muna sa family, tapos we'll take action, kasi hindi lang naman pwedeng accept lang, tapos dapat, yung may action kayong gagawin para mas matulungan siya. So first and foremost po, for me, yung si God muna, may faith in Him. So I hold on to Him talaga kasi hindi ko po masyadong matanggap nung una. Kasi wala akong tandaan na nagkaroon ako ng problem from pregnancy up to the toddler years. Pero yung ADHD ko pala is nakikita during the school year age. So nung last year lang yun, nung nag-aaral siya, parang kasi nag-pandemic pa, parang nawalan ng routine, and so parang nagkaroon ng red flags, medyo naging violent ng konti, tapos naging addicted sa gadget. Ayun po, nagsik po ako ng medical attention. So, I hold on to my faith. Tapos, instill ko din po sa family na mag-pray kami together para mas strong bonding at saka yung support system namin. And kahit maliliit pa yung kids, sabi ko, let's pray para matulungan tayo. Lalo na nung pandemic, actually, I went through a lot kasi may postpartum pa po ako noon, wala pang 1 year si baby. Tapos yun, naging na-diagnose si Francis and nag-pandemic pa po. And then, nag-work po talaga ako dati sa corporate office. So, this is my first time na lahat to parang full-time mom, parang ang bigat naman. Ganon. Pero, ayun, kinaya po sa tulong ng family and yung faith kay God. So, next po yung family, syempre, alam ko lahat po tayo, yung strong na support natin ay yung family. Yung husband ko po, tandem kami kung sino yung mahina at pinapalakas ng bawat isa. So, umiyak po talaga ako sa kanya noon, pero sabi niya, gagawa natin ng paraan or i-help natin. Kasi nga, wala namang cure talaga. Kasi akala ko dati, so mag-therapy tayo, aayos ba, gagaling ba? Eh, hindi pala, innate na nila yon. I-lesson lang natin yung mga bad symptoms or behaviors, tapos explore natin yung magaganda nilang talents and skills. Tapos, yung kasama po doon yung kids, kasi nagbuo po ako ng, yun nga, sabi niyo po, yung A-team, yung, sabi ko, we are a team here, sabi ko, I cannot do it alone. Yung pandemic, sa school, lahat, module, ganyan. So, sabi ko, tayo, mga kids, mga anak, lahat tayo, tulong-tulong. Tapos, sinabi ko na rin po sa siblings ko and sa parents ko po. Siyempre, pagdating doon, hindi mo masabi ng diretso. Pero, at least, unti-unti napaintindi ko and ang hirap lang din po yung way of discipline. Kasi iba po yung discipline kapag meron pong special needs, di ba? Kasi pag sila, konting iyak lang, bigay. Eh, hindi naman po ganun dapat. Meron po tayong discipline and disciplinary actions pagka may mga special needs po. Ayun. Tapos kasama na rin po yung close relatives po. Yung ako po, hindi po ako masyadong ma-open na tao. Ewan ko po, parang gano'n, parang selective po yung pag-trust ko po. Pero unti-unti, na-widen po. Sabi niyo nga po, widen your reach and your space. Kung tiwala ka, open mo yung eyes mo kasi I need to be the eyes and the mouth of my child. Kasi nandito na rin po kami sa bahay namin. So, paano siya makakita sa outside world? Paano siya may hear yung voice niya? So, dapat ito yun or ako yun, window para doon. Tapos po, after ng family, yung medical services, sabi niyo po, I seek help po kasi ano naman din ang maibibigay ko kung naintindihan ko naman na siya. So, yun po, kagaya niyo po, galing din po kami dun sa PGH, kung mabanggit ko na po, developmental pediatrician po, tapos psychiatry, sunod-sunod na po nagbibigay naman po kayo ng sunod-sunod na referral, tapos rehabilitation doctors, GenPed, tapos yung mga hospitals and therapy clinics po. And I must say na sobrang na-equip po ako kasi dati wala namang zero knowledge po ako about that. Tapos unti-unti ang daming mga theories and knowledge, pero hindi mo alam where to start. So, paano ba talaga yun? Yung pag-intindi, kung paano ba? Parang gano'n. Pero as you go along, parang naiintindihan mo na pag minomonitor mo siya, minomonitor mo na rin yung sarili mo. Nagda-diary ka, parang sa sarili mo na, ganito pala, ganyan. And tama po kayo, yung documentation po, sobrang important. Meron po akong mga journals at saka yung sarili ko yung sa Facebook, akin lang po, na ay babalikan mo, ay marunong na siya ito. Dati hindi, ngayon nag-improve. Or tapos na kami dito, iba naman, ibang facing naman, medyo higher skills naman yung gawin natin. Parang ganon. So, hirap na hirap. Sobrang hirap po talaga ng face-to-face lang. Hindi pa po kami ng virtual lang, hindi pa kami nakapag face-to-face. Talagang dati ng resistance niya. Ngayon, nakakaupo na po siya at may konting focus na. Anyway, inattentive po yung condition ng ADHD niya. Tapos, ito na nga po yung nagkaroon kami ng therapy services with the PGH, so Emilio Aguinaldo, and Jose Reyes. And yung very recent po yung teletherapy program. This one po is a whole package po. Not lang yung si Francis, pati po ako and yung family. Sobrang tuwan-tuwa po ako nung na-found out ko yun. And ito po yung psychosocial monthly service po namin na nahihear mo yung other parents, parang iniisip mo, sinasabi niya, tapos yung experience mo, na-experience, ay gano'n, sabi, parang maganda, as in sobrang nakatulong talaga, tapos document ko pa, parang mababalikan mo, tapos pwede mo rin balikan, nandun naman sa Facebook yung mga videos natin. Ayun, sobrang nakatulong po talaga yung mga ganitong services. And tama po si Teacher Lian na we are blessed po talaga na merong gantong online services. And I feel for those naman na wala talagang capacity to have an access. So, both ways nga po talaga. Kasi nakakalungkot po, minsan sa classmate lang ng anak ko, pag hindi sila makapag-answer, parang naisip mo, paano sila papasa? Pwede bang punta na lang sila dito para maki-wifi sila sa amin? Kasi you're a mother parang gusto mo, yung kid mo, you give the best. Best of healthcare service, education. So, you feel for them pag hindi nila kayang ma-access yung mga ganong bagay. Tapos, yun nga po, sunod-sunod na yung naging opportunity po sa Terawi. Tama po kayo, Doc, yung NCDA. Meron din po kaming sponsor with Project Smile. Ayan. Ayun po yung mga naging ways po para mas maintindihan ko yung condition, mas magkaroon po na help si Francis. Tapos po, nailagay ko nga po dito yung hobbies and
inattentive. So pareho tayo dun sa inattentive. So schooling age din siya, lumabas yung kanyang ADHD. So ngayon naman, pakinggan naman natin yung ating another mommy. Ano naman ang iyong experience? Ano yung source of support and how have they helped you po? Mami Pinky. Nakamute po ata kay Mami. Yan. Wala ka pa ring audio, Mami.
Sino po?
Ayan.
Ayun, hello po. First time kong mag-talk po dito. Ayun, una sa lahat, nung napanood ko yung webinar ng psychosocial, sabi ko sa isip ko, parang gusto ko din magganyan. Parang gusto ko din mag-talk. Parang gusto ko i-share. Kasi first time mommy ako na syempre kahit papano expected mo magkakaroon ng anak ka. Yung hindi ko naman sinasabing yung may special need gano'n. In-expect ko na magiging okay man siya. Pero ayun, ang blessing ni Lord is mas matuto ako. Una, yung patience ko humaba ng bongga. Yun po yung una. Na-apply ko na siya ngayon. Ayun, yung una, kasi yung anak ko po, na-diagnose siya ng ESD level 3. May level po yun, di ba, Doc Francesca? Level 3. Tapos po, bago siya na-diagnose, nag-seizure muna siya. May focal epilepsy kasi siya. Mga 2 years old and 7 months, 3 years old sa September, that time, nag-seizure siya ng sobrang lala. Yung tipong matataranta ka na kung anong gagawin, no, bakit nagkakaganyan siya. Ayun, tas nang sobrang hirap na siya, syempre kailangan orasan namin kung gaano katagal kasi importante ma-oxygen siya. Tapos po, nadala namin siya sa private hospital na malapit sa amin kasi emergency na. That day, naisip ko, ba't nagkaroon siya ng epilepsy or seizure, ganyan? Walang dahilan kasi biglaan. Tapos na-check na siya ng doctor pedya niya. Tapos parang nakitaan. Kasi yung mga doctor, di ba, Doc Francesca, parang alam niyo na kung ano meron sa bata. So sabi ng doctor, ay parang may kakaiba sa anak mo. Parang nahiya siya sabihin sa akin na, Mami, kailangan mong mag-visit sa DepEd. Ganon. Sabi ko, pero sa sarili ko parang feeling ko meron. Kasi may red flags ako nakikita na may tiptoeing, no pain tolerance, kahit napasok yung kamay sa electric fan, wala, hindi masakit. Ganun po yun. Tapos po, after sinabi ng doctor na ulit yung seizure niya, so kailangan bumisita na kami sa malaking hospital. So nag-visit kami sa PCMC. Doon kasi, nung na-admit, meron pong mga DepEd po doon, di ba po, neuro, ganyan. May mga referrals na po yun. Napunta na siya sa Bayer, tapos meron siyang CT scan, meron siyang MRI, kasi sa brain di ba po yun? Kaya hindi ako dapat mag-alala kasi may makakatulong sa akin, hindi lang ako. Kasi yung asawa ko kasi type siya ng tao na positive lang siya Parang feeling kasi 'di ba yung tatay kahit parang masakit sa kanila, parang ang strong lang nila gano'n. Kahit feeling nila na disappoint sila pero parang wala lang. Kaya sabi ko hugot ako dito. Parang ang ano lang niya. Kaya naging positive lang din ako. So, ang diagnosis ng ASD is hard for us as parents, as family. Kasi, di ba ang wide ng autism very wide siya. Incorrect behaviors, problem with communication, And also, yung repeated routine. Kasi siya parang speech delay siya din eh. Ang hirap niya makausap. So, part ng support namin is yung sa healthcare. Yung healthcare, pumasok na yung DepEd, di ba po, andun na po yun. Tapos din po, after noon na matreat yung child ko, na-educate na din ako. Parang natutunan ko na din kung ano yung autism. Tapos po, this range support services, therapeutic treatment, available also sa mga autism. Hindi lang katulad kay Mami Badet, yung anak na 18 na, di ba po, may autism. Kasi yung mga may autism, hindi lang naman mga bata. Hanggang dun lang sila. Kasi ang alam natin, wala talagang cure ang ESD. Di ba, Teacher Francesca? Ang pagkakaalam ko kasi sabi nga, di ba, there is no cure for ESD, but most children can lead happy, productive life by taking part of the therapy. Yun yung ginagawa na namin ngayon. Kasi alam naman natin sa Pinas, ang hirap makakuha ng mga libre. Totoo po yan. Kasi sa US, may friend kasi akong may autism. Friend, siya na sa US. Sobrang, po doon, lahat libre po. Tapos kasi dito sa atin, sabihin natin, yung autism nasa 10% lang. Hindi natin alam, nasa 20% na pala. Kasi di ba po kahit yung ugali ng Pinoy ay speech delay. Okay lang yan, magsasalita na lang yan sa susunod na taon. Tiptoeing, okay lang yan. Pero kasi kung may pera ang tao dito sa Pinas, pero hindi ko na inaano kung afford lang po talaga magpa-check sa DepEd. Yung tiptoeing, red flags, hindi lang talaga basta-basta yung bang tipong normal. Di ba kasi pag na-diagnose siya, nasa autism na siya. So, kailangan sa mga parents din, para sa support din natin mga nanay, minsan nasa-share ko din na i-check yung anak, pero ang hirap naman kausapin, baka ma-offend yung mga ganun. Kaya, na lang, sila na lang mag-decide kung magpapacheck sila. Ayun. Tapos, nung nag-diagnose yung anak ko, naghanap ako kasi emotional tayo. Kahit worry tayo, pero emotional. So, sumali po ako sa mga support groups. Ayan na po. Yung sa GC, sa Messenger. Sumali ako sa Autism Parents. Yung sa Rizal chapter. Meron kasing GC Rizal Filipino Autism Parents. Kasi may mga hugot-hugot doon. Yung anak ko, ganito, ganyan. Okay lang yan, Mami, ganyan din anak ko. Okay. Hindi pala ako nag-iisa. Parang the same, nag-share kami ng mga namin ba, yung mga emosyon namin doon. Ayun, sobrang laking tulong as parents sa akin. Ayun. Tapos, yung sa naman, yung sa parents newly diagnosed children, meron yung support na galing sa Autism Speaks. Kasi na-search ko yun sa Google. Kasi naging Google ako anong tawag doon? Yung simula nung naging yung anak ko, naging na-diagnose. Ang dami.
Nag-enroll tayo, Mami, nag-enroll tayo sa Google University.
Yes, isa tayo doon, estudyante tayo. Ang lahat inaral ko. Para kung balik ng college, nag-thesis ako sa autism, para maging broad yung kaalaman ko, di ba po? Tapos yun, kasi yung Autism Speaks, yung sa, parents na bagong ma-diagnose yung anak, may 100 step-by-step sila after ma-diagnose yung anak. So, ayan, di ba? Usay-isahin ko yun, wag na. Basta na ko po siya, naaral ko. Kasi iba kasi yung treat sa treat ko sa anak ko as normal child. Pero syempre, meron pa din po na kailangan yung, kasi di ba yung basic needs nila dapat maanuhan natin, ma-support natin. Tapos po, nung sumali ako dyan, naging yung parang nakalma-kalma na ako. So, ay, dami ko na natutunan. Hindi na ako dapat, kasi syempre emotional tayo eh. Ang sakit sa puso. Yung gano'n na nalaman ko po yun. Tapos, syempre, punta tayo sa, yung card. PWD, sinasabi ni Doc Francesca. Dahil nga po sa, ang mahal ng maintenance ng focal epilepsy, may discount tayo dito sa card ng PWD card. Hindi lang po kasi ito, kahit naman po, ma-share ko lang po yung friend ko po, mayroon siyang PWD card. Kasi, siya, may anxiety. May anxiety siya. Pero mayroon siyang card. Sabi niya kasi hindi lang naman PWD card kung disabled. Hindi. Yung sa mental health din, pwede ka mag-apply ng PWD card. Ayun po. Tapos, yung sa PWD card, napunta din ako sa yung sa yung sinabi ni Doc Francesca, yung sa pagboto. may mga ano na ako, may mga nakatulong sa akin yung journey ko na sobrang hirap. Ang dami niyang check up, ang dami niyang ano, ang dami niyang tawag doon, yung mga dapat gawin sa kanya, MRI. May mga nasa gobyerno naman na tumutulong sa mga ganun. Pero sana no, sa next election meron talagang para sa mga may disability yung programa talaga na ma-offer sa Senado. Shout out. Yung sana may batas naman sila, yung mapansin man lang nila na meron din mga nangangailangan. Support yun para sa amin, sa may mga autism na anak. Tapos kailangan maging inclusive tayo as mga mami, diba? Di lang naman mami, lahat ng mayroon special needs, inclusive. Kasi important yun, part of being an ally to minorities of all the types. Tapos dapat hindi tayo judgmental. Sana. Don't judge. Kasi mahirap talaga maging parent na may special needs. Dapat maintindihan din yun ng mga ibang tao. Tapos, kailangan ma-understand mo talaga yung autism. Kasi sa family natin, yun ang makakatulong. Support din kasi yung family and friends. Ngayon, pagdating sa friends, kailangan ang nanay or tayo, syempre alam na natin yung autism kasi para ma-apply din natin sa mga friends natin. Kasi emotional tayo pagdating sa ganun. Dapat yung mga friends din natin, maiintindihan yung sitwasyon ng anak natin. Kasi di ba yung dati, yung sa bullying, yung naano natin, yung mga anak kasi natin may special needs, minsan nabubully sila. Kasi nga, kulang yung kaalaman din nila sa autism. Kaya yung mga friends natin, makakatulong din sila kung maiintindihan nila yung sitwasyon din natin. Tapos, sa family naman, kailangan, kasi yung mga lolo-lola, ang kulit na anak mo, mga ganyan. Pero sa amin, sa family namin, kasi open na kami, naintindihan nila yung sitwasyon ng anak ko, kaya lahat kami happy. Parang nandun na kami sa process na, kasi nasa therapy kami eh. Yung therapy kasi, di ba yun yung continue ng anak ko eh, yung nagte-therapy siya. Kasi nga, tapos na kami dun sa first, kung saan ginawa kong hagdan, nandun na kami sa 10 hagdan. Kung sa process sa breakup, nasa healing na tayo. Ayun, ganun na kami. So, yung family ko, supportive sila pagdating sa ganyan po. Supportive sila sa anak ko. Kahit makulit, okay lang yan. Kasi naiintindihan yung sitwasyon. Kasi big help yun sa parents na yung surroundings mo, yung sabi nga ni teacher, yung microsystem ba yun, na dapat naintindihan din yung anak mo. Kailangan aware din sila kasi mas masaya, di ba, na naiintindihan nila yung anak nila, hindi lang porket ganun yung anak mo, doon lang siya sa sulok, doon ka na lang kasi ganyan ka, hindi. Kasi dapat sabi nga ng teacher niya, kasi nakakatuwa kasi dapat yung anak ko i-enroll ko sa SPED. So, hindi siya naging SPED ngayon. Nasa, inclusion. Kasi sobrang nakakatuwa, graduate siya, ayan, graduate siya nung, di ba, ang cute. Graduate siya, ang nakakatuwa, di ba, yung progress na kikita mo. Kasi yung sa diary ng therapy, yung sinesend namin doon, tapos yung mga, kung anik-anik namin, laki talaga ng tulong ng therapy. Kaya dapat early intervention talaga. Kung sa early intervention sa cure. Wala lang, nasabi ko lang. Ayun po, sobrang ang laki ng help ng para sa anak ko. Tapos, ang naisip ko na lang na dapat yung strength ng anak natin kasi may mga kanya-kanya silang skills. Musically inclined, anak ko ganyan, musically inclined, prayer, worship, ganyan siya. Tapos magpapari siya, mga ganyan, mga dreams niya na kahit parang nagugulat ka na lang sa mga ganun niya eh. Tapos, ang pinakalas ko na share na dapat continue lang yung therapy kasi big help yun sa anak natin, sa mga anak natin. Support lang natin sila. Tapos, kasi sa anak ko ngayon nakaka-communicate na siya. Yung sentence, dati hindi niya masabi, ang daldal. Kahit gabi na, tulog na tayo, daldal pa rin. Pero sige, go lang. Okay lang madaldal kaysa naman sa hindi ka magdadaldal dyan. Pero, ang nasasabi ko lang na ang laki na ng improvement niya. Tapos, support lang natin siya, discover lang natin yung mga talents, skills niya. Tapos, syempre, they will grow and improve sa tamang panahon in God's time. Ayun po.
Ang galing naman ni Mami. Tama yan. Tsaka syempre, ilang taon na ba yung anak mo, Mami?
5 na siya ngayon.
Oh,
5
na. Pero tignan mo naman yung aura ni Mami, di ba? Parang yung positive na siya. So, ako kasi, sasagutin ko rin yung main sources of support and paano ako natulungan. So, nung nag-create ako ng 18, nandyan si doktora, nandyan si therapist, nandyan si DevPed, tapos pumasok si school, yung SPED teachers, yung regular teachers, pumasok si peers, yung classmates sa friends niya sa So, pumasok din dun sa 18 ko yung community. Nandyan si support group. So, nung pumasok si support group, ang dami kong nakuha, ang dami kong natutunan ko na hindi pala ako nag-iisa. Kasi nga, syempre, way back then, talagang napakahirap ng support group. So, ang galing ng naitulong, I'm sure naitulong kay Mami Pinky na nagkaroon siya ng support group. Merong Philippine Autism Group, merong Autism Society of the Philippines, which helped me. Merong Therapy that gives you mga ganitong psychosocial topics. So, napakalaking bagay ng naitutulong ng panahon ngayon na despite the pandemic, siguro merong mga susulpot na mga bagong nadadiagnose dahil sa pandemic. Marami talaga kasi ring na bagong buhay dahil nangyari itong pandemic, pero nag-a-adapt naman tayo. So, maganda yung ginagawa ni Mami Pinky na nag-a-adapt siya, naggagawa ng paraan para matuto. Tapos, another thing, nung nag-aral ako, nung na-accept, nag-understand ako about autism, kasi na-feel ko rin si Mami Ann, na medyo nahihirapan siyang maging vocal sa kanyang feelings. So ako din, way back then, very timid din ako eh. So nung natuto about autism, talagang walang katapusang aral yan. So nung parang feeling ko, nagma-masters na ako ng autism doon na ako pumasok sa family ko. So inumpisahan ko doon sa core ko, sa sinabi nga ni Doc, yung nuclear, inumpisahan ko talaga doon. Sumunod ako, lumabas ako, nandyan na yung relatives, tapos sumunod na yung mga friends. Kasi hindi ko sila, magagalit lang ako kung hindi ko naintindihan yung autism tapos ma-judge yung anak ko, magagalit lang ako Pero what I did, inaral ko muna maigi. Kumbaga, ito na-master ko na. Tsaka ko ngayon siya ma-explain sa family ko. Kasi paano ma-explain ng autism kung ikaw sa sarili mo, hindi mo alam kung ano yung condition ng anak mo. So napaka-importante. Gandang opportunity yung naibibigay ng groups like Therapy kasi ini-educate nila tayo, ini-empower nila tayo, and ang important thing is we advocate kasi walang ibang mag-advocate sa anak natin kundi tayo. Sisimulan natin yun. Tinutulungan lang tayo ni Therapy, ng mga teachers, para ma-empower tayo na kailangan labas tayo sa mga shell natin kasi hindi pwedeng forever tatahimik tayo na ibubuli yung anak natin or kung ano man. Kasi merong rights yung mga bata. So, and yung sinabi ni Doktora, syempre pag nag-advocate tayo, mas marami tayong maririnig ng gobyerno, will be seen, will be heard. So hopefully, yung mga benepisyo na dapat binibigay talaga sa atin, sa mga anak natin, maibigay. Kasi talagang tama si Doc, nahuhuli tayo. Canada, libre lahat, may allowance pa yung parent. Hindi na kailangang magtrabaho ng magulang kasi may allowance galing sa gobyerno. Tayo dito nga. So talagang feel ko yung feeling din ni Mami na kung pwede lang na dito mag-school yung mga hindi kaya mag-afford para lang makapag-online learning, magawa lang natin. Kung po pwede lang, di ba nakaka-heartbroken na hindi maibigay ng government natin yun. Which dapat maibibigay kasi sabi, ang PWD may 1% naman. So, yung 1% pa na privilege na yon, kahati pa natin yung senior. So, sana talaga we also would vote and think about the children when we vote. So, yun lang yung may-share ko. May mga mommies ba dyan na gusto pa mag-share? Sino ba yung mga visitors natin dyan na would like to share yung kanilang nararamdaman, kung ano yung saan sila kumuha ng hugot, support, katulad nila Mami Ann and Mami Pinky. Meron po ba sa ating gusto mag-share? Or any questions?
Pwede po kayo mag-raise hand or mag-type po sa chat kung meron po kayong questions kina Doc and kina Mommy.
Opo, take the opportunity. Sabi nga ni Doc, di ba, ask. Go ahead, let's ask. Ako may tanong nga kay Doc. Kasi parang dati kasi, ang alam ko lang, dati, nalaman ko na meron palang specialista sa mga children with may mga developmental delays. Hindi ko kasi alam dati yun eh. Kasi dati parang sabi nung mother-in-law ko, may parang diferensya tong anak mo, patingin mo. Hindi niya alam kung saan ko papatingin. So, ang unang contact namin was a child neurologist lang. Di pa namin alam. Tapos sabi niya, kailangan makita siya ng developmental pediatrician. Meron pala pang specialista for that. So, nung explain, so sobrang overwhelming. Ang question ko, Doc, is ano po ba, meron po bang distinctions between developmental pediatrician, behavior pediatrician? Kasi dati, hindi ko po talaga alam yan eh. Pero ngayon, daming labels and specialists and all sorts of specialists na nagkikater sa mga bata. So, ano po bang difference nun? Or is it just the same po?
We have dun sa society ng mga developmental and behavioral pediatricians, there are those who underwent training specifically for developmental and behavioral pediatrics, and there are those who went into training specifically for neuro-developmental pediatrics. So, depende sa kung anong institution nag-train. Ano po, yun yung nagiging distinction. So, specifically, for example, for PCMC, they offer neurodevelopmental pediatrics. But for me, for example, in PGH, in Philippine General Hospital, the training is developmental and behavioral pediatrics. But essentially po, all of us po, the neurodevelopmental pediatricians and developmental and behavioral pediatricians, we help those with, we all help naman po the children with special needs. So yun with autism, ADHD, cerebral palsy, intellectual disability, global developmental delay. So we are all trained naman po to handle all of those children. Aside from us, other medical specialists who can also help in diagnosing, no? Pwede rin po minsan yung child psychiatrists and even pediatric neurologists, specifically lalo na kung for children with cerebral palsy, mga ganun pong may special needs. Yun po. So, there are small differences, but in parang generally po naman, all of us po, yung mga developmental and behavioral pediatricians, neurodevelopmental pediatricians, and even yung child psychiatrists and pediatric neurologists, we can diagnose, handle, manage po children with special needs.
Okay po. Thank you po for the clarification. Meron pa akong isang follow-up question. Kasi merong iba kasi na hindi kasi ma-afford to go to a developmental pediatrician for that matter. Pero kasi sabi meron daw cheaper na nagda-diagnose. Can you clarify or say something about it? Yung mga clinical psychologists or psychometricians and psychometricians. Kasi meron pong ibang parent na hindi ma-afford, mas na-afford daw nilang pumunta doon and nagbibigay daw ng diagnosis. So I just would like to know yung nasan ba, may technicality ba dito, and would that diagnosis be different from that of your diagnosis? Kasi po mahirap po kasi sinasabi nila kailangan talaga developmental pedi ang magbibigay ng diagnosis. Ano pong masasabi po ninyo?
So it's very difficult to comment on it, no, kasi hindi ko rin po alam kung ano po yung ibig niyong sabihin na they actually diagnose, no? But these mga psychometricians, clinical psychologists, they are allied medical professionals also, and they are actually trained also to do certain assessments. Okay, so they do mga IQ testing, psychological evaluations, and through those testing, they can actually have findings, no, that support certain diagnosis. But I don't think all would give a diagnosis. Sometimes po, they just give an evaluation of the skills of certain children. If siguro sila Teacher Lian can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the developmental assessments that they require in therapy are mostly from mga developmental pediatricians or child psychiatrists, mga ganun po. But ano po I also cannot comment also dun sa mas mura na comment, no? Kasi hindi ko po alam also kung paano po ba yung mga pag yung rates nila and yung mga professional fees nila, no? But siguro what I can just say is that all of these health professionals naman po, our goal is essentially to help identify a child's strength, weakness, and help manage those difficulties or yung mga yun nga, mga weaknesses po nila. Siguro I'll ask babato ko to kanila Teacher Lian kung ano po ba yung mga requirements ninyo to administer therapy. Kailangan po ba from a DepEd or
Actually po, Doc, depende po siya sa institution kung saan po sila mag-a-avail ng therapy. Pero most of us po, more on galing sa consultation ng developmental pediatrician or child psychologist. Yun. And when ako po kasi may experience po ako in community settings. So parang kami, syempre hinahabol natin yung early intervention sa mga bata. Yun, kaya parang may ilang beses ayun po na binibigyan muna namin sila ng parang first aid na parang na aral na rin po kasi naming mga therapists yung mga developmental stages and yung mga red flags. So parang for that moment na habang wala pa po silang diagnosis kasi hindi pa nila afford na makapag pa-check up. Ayun, para bigyan po muna namin sila ng program or tuturuan po yung mga parents on how to parang or kung ano po yung mga manifestations ng bata na delays, yun po muna yung target muna. Yeah, and then kapag let's say kaya na po nila makapagkuha ng consultation, ayun, saka na po natin ifa-finalize yung mga diagnosis ng bata.
Saka siguro, no, in addition na lang to the question, there are, medyo dumadami na po ngayon yung mga institutions that offer free developmental assessment. So, mas maganda na po ngayon, I think, yun nga, aside from Philippine General Hospital, other institutions such as National Children's Hospital, PCMC, even LaSalle po, and Medical City, they offer po mga subsidized assessments. If not completely free, much lower amount po yung kailangan bayaran. So marami na pong options kumbaga. And marami na institutions that offer, if not free, discounted developmental assessments.
Yun, thank you po sa clarity and answering na question po. Kasi nung panahon ko, wala po talaga mga ganyang explanations, walang discounts, walang charity. So talagang out of pocket po talaga lahat. Pero yun nga, so para sa mga magulang out there watching, listening, with us also dito sa Zoom, joining us, mga participants, maganda po talaga na grab the opportunity, find kung saan pwedeng makakuha ng support, social support, emotional support, lahat po ng support na kakailanganin natin for our growth and for the children's growth. So sabi nga, early intervention, sabi ni Mami Pinky, is the key, is the answer. Totoo naman po yun kasi 2.5 years old kasi na-diagnose yung autism ko. So right then and there, sabi ni Doc, mag-OT, mag-OT muna kayo. Tapos balik kayo sa akin. So ganun po yung ginawa namin. And malaki naman yung improvement. Meron lang talaga mga setbacks, like may mga weaknesses kasi, merong mga strengths. So doon kami tumututok sa strengths niya. So that's what we do sa mga children namin. We empower them with their strengths. Kasi what we can only do for their weaknesses is improve them. Kung hindi na talaga masusolusyonan yan, just focus on the strengths. Kasi wala, ganun po talaga sila eh. They were born that way. It's just for us to understand and accept the children. So, yun, teach. Meron pa bang mag-share? Gustong mag-share? Gustong mag-clarify? Kasi marami akong mahilig ako magtanong. Natutunan kong magtanong dahil sabi ng therapist ko, learn and learn from sa diagnosis and then kung ano yung pwedeng gawin. Ay, may share pala ako. Wala pa naman eh, walang nag-raise ng hands eh. Si Mami Ann, kasi di ba recently diagnosed na yung kanyang anak dahil sa pandemic, so nagkaroon siya ng kumbaga doon lumabas, schooling age din kasi lumalabas yung ADHD. Kasi importante correct me if I'm wrong, Teacher Gian and Doc Francesca, importante kasi na pag ADHD kasi may structuring kanyang routine. So kami, na-develop na namin yun since ang panganay ko lang yung nagkaroon ng experience with therapy. So, kung ano yung natutunan ko doon, across the board na, wala nang ibang rules for this one, for this child, hindi ko na iniba-iba. So, lahat sila na-structure ko na. So, malaking bagay yung natutunan ng anak ko nung nagkaroon siya ng structure. Kasi pag ADHD, they're everywhere. Their mind is everywhere. Movements, lahat, everywhere yan. Yung thought, lalo na yung thought kung inattentive. Inattentive din yung akin. So, nung na-structure siya, hindi na siya yung parang labo-labo, na parang ano bang uunahin ko? Mga ganon. So, meron na siyang pattern. So, kumbaga, every year, meron akong ina-unlock na achievement unlock, level unlock. Kasi, parang, na-master na niya tong structure na to, mag-i-insert na ako ng bagong structure. So, maybe you can try, Mami Ann, to structure the schedule. Kasi, I know pag parents tayo, busy tayo. So, pwede natin yung i-incorporate. Schedule ko, schedule ng family, schedule ng bata. Para at least it would help you go the day, yung day by day ninyo, na hindi kayo parang
planner lang.
Oo, parang planner lang. Totoo naman po yun. Dalagang dati talaga, hindi kasi ako masulat. So, mag-visual ako. Mga anak ko, visual din sila. So, sulat lang natin, structure lang natin, pagandahin lang natin yung structure nila, like lagyan mo ng star, ng rewards, smiley face, mga ganyan. If they did a good job, kasi positive discipline din yon, positive reinforcement na meron silang tap on the shoulder, good job, mga ganon. So, ang laking boost.
Sila, no, Mami Badet, na-appreciate nila yung mga ganon?
Oo, mabababaw naman sila. And tama naman si Mami Pinky na hindi naman sila forever cute. Hindi sila forever acceptable na maglupasay sa sahig pag umiiyak. So, kailangan talaga nating turuan yung mga bata. Hindi pwedeng lagi ka na lang, isipin mo na lang yung 18-year-old ko maglupasay sa kalsada, di ba? Hindi na siya cute. So, kailangan from the start, umpisahan mo, turuan, i-train kung ano yung pwedeng skill na ituro. Huwag tayo masyadong mag-focus dun sa hindi siya marunong magbasa, hindi siya marunong magsulat, hindi siya marunong mag-alphabet, mga ganon. Later on, it can pwede mong sundutan ulit yon. Pero yung skill kasi mahirap ituro. Skill of yung hygiene, skill sa pag-alaga sa hygiene or pagturo sa household chores, hindi naman inaalila ang anak natin noon pag nagwalis na siya or something. So, mga little skills na you can teach right now, especially lahat naman tayo online. Pwede natin ituro yun, yung mga mabawasan din ba yung trabaho mo as a parent na hindi naman sa gusto mo na maging tamad, pero tinuturo mo yun kasi eventually gagawin naman nila yung pagtanda mo. So, importante may structure, importante
magkukulat ka, Mami Badet, nagkukusa na sila.
Opo, totoo. Tsaka yun nga, once you do the structure kasi, para na silang automatic. Hindi ka na magdadaldal, hindi ka na magnanag. Kasi magugulat ka, ako minsan, magugulat na lang, ay gising na silang lahat, may body clock na sila, nag-set na sila ng table, pang umaga, pang breakfast. So, ang laking tulong pag mayroong structure. So, I hope makatulong din na magawa po ninyo yun. Kasi, mababawasan din yung yung hirap nyo na parang yung stressors. Kasi meron na kayong mga katulong or ka-share sa burden nyo sa household chores, di ba? So, yun yung mga support na nakukuha ko. Pero sa government, vote wisely. Yun lang. Vote wisely.
Dok, meron po may question.
Yun, question.
Ayan, may nagtanong po ng question sa Facebook Live natin from Chenke. Hi po, Doc. Yung anak ko po may amblyopia for now po. Eye patching po ang ginagawa namin nitong linggo lang. Ano po bang therapy ang dapat namin gawin sa kanya?
I think the best, I think the best specialist, kumbaga, to address that would be an ophthalmologist, no? Is it, medyo broad yung question, is it just therapy for the amblyopia? Or are there other difficulties that the child is facing? Because yun nga, if it's purely problem lang with the eyes, no? Yun nga, I think opta yung best doctor to address that. And then yung ang tawag dito, parang patching can help train kasi, no, the eye with the weaker muscles, kumbaga. So that siguro yung question ko doon, babalik ko yung tanong sa kanya, therapy for what exactly? Is it just amblyopia, or are there other difficulties or challenges that the child is facing that would need therapy?
Then may nag-raise din po ng hand si Mommy Julien. Ito po, unmute po kayo, Mommy.
Ayan po. Medyo medical po yung question ko kay Doktora. Bali po, yung anak ko po 4 years old, na-diagnose po siya na may ASD nung 3 years old siya. Bali 2 years na po kasi yung huli na check-up niya. Sa kakabasa ko po sa mga group, required po ba pag ASD kailangan ng EEG? Nung tinanong kasi ako ng 2 years old si Jacob, going 5 na po siya. Tinanong niya kung merong seizure yung anak ko. Sabi ko, wala naman po akong sin. So hindi niya po kami ni-record ng EEG. Ngayon po, wala naman din po akong nakikitang regression. Wala naman po ako nakikitang, may sinasabi kasi mami na silent seizure. Hindi rin siya natutulala. Wala rin siyang, yung side glance, ba tawag doon, yung tumitingin sa
EEG. Well, first siguro I'll comment lang, no, na seizure disorders po kasi are more common in children with autism compared to the general population. And then there are also what you mentioned already, what we call mga subclinical seizures, meaning seizures po na hindi necessarily nakikita or very very apparent. And then, tama rin po kayo, no, there are certain mga clues in the history na would warrant further assessment with an EEG. For example, certain behavioral changes, or yun nga, pwedeng history of a regression, or yung nawawalan sila ng certain skills. No? Siguro, ang sabihin ko po, hindi po siya tipong all-encompassing na kailangan lahat ng bata at the onset ng diagnosis of ASD required meron ng EEG agad-agad. Kasi syempre, kung sana libre and very widely available, mas maganda sana. Pero we really need to manage our resources. So again, yun nga po, hindi po talaga lahat ng batang may autism at the onset of a diagnosis ay nire-require na magkaroon ng EEG. There are certain clues in the history and even the physical examination that we look for, and then based on those po, the developmental, based on the clinical judgment, kumbaga, ng developmental profession, they may or may not request for an
bali, next week ako kasi yung schedule niya. So, dapat talaga mas makita ng personal ng doktor. Para masabi niya na required talagang EEG yung anak mo.
Yes.
Pero hindi naman po lahat ng may autism may seizure.
Opo, hindi po. Hindi po lahat ng batang may autism ay may seizures. Opo.
Okay. Tapos, pangalawang question ko po, nag-worry na po kasi ako. Medyo advanced ako mag-isip. Hindi pa nangyayari. Hindi pa nangyayari kasi only child ko po kasi. Napapansin ko po, yung mga non-verb, usually mas madalas yung mga non-verbal na teenager, meron po silang aggressive behavior. Lahat po ba na may autism, may ganun? Yung naninira ng gamit, nananakit. Yung anak ko naman po, happy child naman po siya ever since po. Hanggang ngayon. Ayun. Lahat po ba ng bata, ganun, na may autism, yung nananakit, aggressive. Nagbabasag po, nagpo-post po kasi nagbabasag ng jealousy. So, nag-worry kami ako sa anak ko. Baka pagtanda ako, bigla ako bugbugin.
So every child po with autism is unique. So, hindi po natin kayang ma-generalize na kung meron po kayong nakikitang certain behavior or certain characteristic sa ibang or sa isang batang may autism, hindi po natin yun kayang ma-generalize for all children with autism because they are very unique. Kaya po siya tinatawag na autism spectrum disorder kasi iba-iba po yung presentation nila. They all fulfill a criteria. They all fulfill yung criteria natin for autism. Pero yung presentation can be very different po. So, siguro, some children, especially as you mentioned, yung mga non-verbal, hindi nakakapagsalita because of their difficulties or yung kahirapan or yung kakulangan po nila ng ability to express themselves through verbal means, di ba? Parang wala sila masyadong or kulang yung means nila of communication. Minsan, sila po yung nakikitaan natin ng mga ganyan, ng aggressive behaviors, pero hindi po lahat. Okay? So, hindi non-verbal, aggressive na agad. We really cannot generalize po. It's a case-to-case basis po, Mami. So, huwag niyo po masyadong, don't get ahead of yourself, Mami. Don't get ahead of yourself.
Galing mo lagi mo nababasa ko sa group.
Hanggang malalim ka muna.
Follow-up question, Doktora. Kung totoo yung nabasa ko sa isang article, totoo ba na mula pagkabata, sa toddler pa lang, yung anxiety nila, pag hindi yun na-cure, totoo ba na nadadala nila yun hanggang sa paglaki, tapos it could turn into depression? Totoo ba yun?
Ano po as I mentioned earlier, di ba, dun po sa lecture ko, all of the experiences, yung mga, mga pinagdadaanan, kumbaga, ng mga bata, mula pagkabata pa lang po, can really have lifelong effects. So, hindi lang siya anxiety. Pwede, may mga iba pa po, di ba, na pwede talagang magkaroon ng lifelong effects. So, again, depende po some children with issues with, yun nga, anxiety or irritability or aggression, kapag hindi na manage earlier, di ba, pag hindi na address, kumbaga, syempre, mas may tendency po na magkaroon po ito ng, or kumbaga, madala nila or magkaroon po effect later on in life. Kaya nga po importante na nabibigyan natin sila ng support, ng interventions early on.
Oo, early on. Para mas nakokorek po. Yun lang po, para salamat ng madami. Naliwalagan ako. Para may
Mami,
Yung malalim, Mami,
Oo. Kasi lahat ng Mami, yun lang question.
Oo. Tsaka Mami, 5 years old pa lang yung anak mo. Huwag mo i-worry yung mga hindi naman natin kailangang i-worry for now. Kasi baka kayo po yung magkaroon naman ng anxiety, di ba?
Oo.
Tsaka yung
sabi ko kay Mami, relax muna.
Alam mo, Mami, akin 18 years old na, pero next year pa kami mapaplano ano yung susunod na gagawin namin. Kasi mahirap mag-plan too much, malayo. Kasi pag hindi natin na baka maka-heartache lang tayo or madidishearten tayo kasi hindi na natupad, yung ganon. So, just, one day at a time lang, Mami. Tapos, yung sinabi ni Doktora, I'd like to, din po, yung, adverse child experiences. So, habang bata, edi pa-experience po natin, mabubuti, positive, iwasan natin yung mamalo, kung kakayanin, kasi malaking contributing factor po yung environment na kinalalakihan niya eh. Kung ang kinalalakihan niya is merong mga sigawan, merong mga paluan, ganyan. So, most likely, pagtanda niya, dala niya po yun. So, yun lang yung akin pong take po. So, meron pa po ba? Yes,
Wala na pong question, Doktora. Marami pong salamat.
Thank you.
Salamat po, Ma'am Badet.
Welcome po.
Ma'am Lian.
Hindi po. Yan, may nag-comment din, Mommy Badet, sa Facebook na related din doon sa i-expose yung mga bata sa positive environment. Na sabi ni Mommy Cherry, mas maganda pong i-develop yung positive skills nila na alam mong andyan na din kaysa ipilit yung mga wala o hindi pa nila kaya. And is-share lang din ni Mommy Liza na disability turns to ability when you and your family accept him of what he is by loving him unconditional love, guide and support his abilities to grow independently. Yun. And meron din po, nag-share din si Mommy Liza ulit na she would like to share, but she's on Facebook. Yun, we have 5 PWDs in my children's family, and one of them is my child who is autism spectrum disorder level 3, and my 2 children are also the global developmental delay and the hydrocephalus are the same. Yun, so parang mukhang malaking factor din na i-hone yung positive environment ng mga bata para eventually hindi lang kumbaga ma-support ng bata yung sarili niya when they grew up, pati din yung parents kaya din sila mabigyan ng support, and yung parents din makakuha din ng support from other people. And last po, merong pa-anonymous na question. Yan, someone asked na, pag matanda na ba, Doc, wala na ba magagawa ang therapy?
There is always hope, no? Marami pong there are different therapeutic interventions available, even catering to adults with special needs, no? So laging meron tayong magagawa, not just through therapy but through other means din po. Always try to seek help. But again, you always have to keep in mind po siguro, ano po bang klaseng tulong yung gusto po ninyong hingin or makamit. So, kasi very broad, no? Very general yung question niya. So, sasagutin ko na lang din in a general manner. So, even until paglaki po, kahit tumanda po, therapy can help. Okay? But syempre, the goals will change depending on the needs of the child or the adult. Kaya siguro importante nga din po na nagpa-follow up para mas guided po kayo on the goals of therapy for your child. Kasi minsan, baka naman pala hindi na nila kailangan or baka wala nang need for the therapy kasi alam na nila or kaya na nila, diba? So, yun po.
Ayun, may another question po ulit. Yan, how often po ang check-up sa DevPed?
It depends on the needs of the child. So, ako personally, there are certain patients that I try to follow up closely, lalo na kapag bata pa. Kasi nga, di ba, as we are mentioning kanina pa, early intervention is key. And lalo na kasi pag bata pa, minsan either madali po silang may mga iba po na madaling nakaka-pick up, so nag-change agad yung goals natin for therapy for them. Or yung iba naman, gusto ko pong i-follow up agad para malaman if there is a need to add other interventions kung hindi nag-work yung mga binibigay na natin. Minsan, there are certain children that I try to follow up after 3 months pa lang. There are some after around 6 months. Sometimes around 9 months or even a year after na yung iba. So, depende. Depende sa pangangailangan po ng bata.
Thank you po. Thank you po, Doc Francesca. Ayun, thank you din po sa mga mommies natin, si Mommy Ann and si Mommy Pinky. Yun, for sharing your time and expertise po for today. Yun, so we would like to, yun, thank you po talaga ng sobra. Marami po
Thank
kaming
you po,
natutunan.
Doktora.
Opo.
Sobrang
Yes.
dami, parang bitin yung oras. Kasi tingnan mo, parang kainitan pa lang, malapit, sayang kulang yung oras, pero kainitan pa lang nang gusto yung pumasok ng mga questions and ano eh. Pero, yun nga, kulang yung oras natin eh. But, pero I hope marami kayong natutunan kasi ako, kahit na in my 18 years of experience with the autism spectrum, marami pa rin akong natutunan today and sa ibang sharings ninyo. So, importante talaga yung support group kasi we learn from each other.
Isa ko rin po actually, even ano po, ang dami ko rin pong natutunan from your experiences, from your accounts, no? So it's also very refreshing to hear the different experiences from you, from the mommies. Lalo na, sinasabi ko nga po, minsan mas eksperto pa po kayo sa amin. So, ano po, we learn from each other, di ba? So, ano po talaga to, give and take in a relationship. Kaya nga, importante, meron tayong team so we can learn from all of the members of the team.
Opo. Well, thank you very much, Doktora.
Opo.
Any ano po, last parting words po before we give you our certificate of appreciation, Doktora?
Siguro ano na lang, ano po, I agree, no? There are so many things that we can discuss and so little time. So if ever there's another opportunity po to do something like this, don't hesitate po to contact us to make time. Kasi 'di ba, importante to advocate for our children with special needs and this is an opportunity to advocate for them. So ano po, 'yon, just syempre hindi po ako 24 hours, 7 days a week na available. Pero, yun po. Just get in touch po and I will try to make time naman po to help. Kasi I
thank
really
you very
appreciate po these
much.
kinds of,
Thank you po.
Thank you po.
Thank you po. Yan, if ever po ba, Doktora, pwede din po kaya as consultant?
Sige, pag-usapan po natin yan.
We will pray for that po. We will pray for that. Meron pa akong i-share na ano, yung shirt ko kasi is kita niyo po ba yung, nakikita ba hindi?
Ala, mami, kasi green screen, green yung
Anyway, my shirt kasi says see the able, not the label.
Yes.
So, yun lang yon. Parang mommies, diagnosis lang yan. Kaya natin yan, mommies tayo. Yun. Yun.
Yes.
So, can we, we'd like to present for our certificate of appreciation. Wait lang po. Ayan. Kita niyo po, Doc. Sarah, we would like to give to you the certificate of appreciation. This is presented to you, Dr. Zao Fernandez, for sharing your insights and expertise as a guest speaker during this psychosocial support group session entitled Kamusta Kayo? Connecting with our community on the 20th day of November 2021, signed by our therapists and therapy interns. So thank you very much, Doc, for your time, your precious time.
Thank you rin po. I had it's a great opportunity po to talk to all of you po. I learned a lot as well.
Oh, thank you po.
Thank you po, Doc. And we would like also to give our certificate of appreciation to our mommies. Yan, kay Mommy Joanne Estoy and kay Mommy Maria Pinky Irinco for sharing her insights and expertise as a parent advocate during the psychosocial support group session entitled Kamusta Kayo? Connecting with our community on the 20th day of November 2021. Yan, thank you po.
Thank you very much.
Maraming salamat po. Yan, mga mommies and sa ating mga speakers, pwede po ba tayo mag-picture for documentation? Yan, kung pwede po kayo mag-open ng camera.
Bukas po ng mga camera. Mami Cherry, pa-open ng camera. Mami Athena, attendance ito. Mami Losada, pa-open ng camera para makita natin ang mga beauty natin.
And Teacher Angge, let me know kapag ready na for picture.
Okay, I won't be able to turn on my cam. Pero, yes. Okay. Everyone, 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
And thank you po.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doktora. Thank you, Mommies. Thank you,
Practice po.
teachers.
Boto po ng tama.
Yes.
Yes.
Yan po.
What?